I think for this Sunday's message, I may be better served to read the scriptures with you from the screen as we go to keep me on track. I'll confess that as I have thought through this Sunday's message in light of this week's event and past events, my thoughts have been mildly feverish, so I'll try to talk, as my wife says, at a pace where you can understand me as we try to work through some of what we'll reflect on this morning. In past Sundays, we've reflected on the good, ordered nature of the created order that God has made, that it runs on its logic faithfully, steadily, from the atom to the sun, all in its way. And in that way, there are ways in that logic that sometimes cause instances that happen that are tragic to us. As we weigh the week gone by, it's one more instance of something that is not of natural making. It's not a air mass or a mass of moisture or shifting of tectonic plates. It was a product of the world as mankind has made it. And in our vocabulary, we only have world. But it's informative for us, instructional for us to think about the created world and the world we have created, the rules of society, the regulations, the ways that humankind has crafted to navigate life in this world. And that world has its own logic. In that world, it would seem to be the case that world can create, produce, I dare say, contort and twist the kind of person that can do what happened this week. And I don't mean to be overly grim about all this, but I feel compelled to name that. To name the fact that we have constructed, through millennia, fascinating human civilizations with amazing organizations of civil structure, etc. And yet that world, as we make it and remake it, civilization after civilization, has always produced tragic beings. So for our point of departure in this lovely walk down human nature lane, I do want to start somewhere that isn't so despairing. Well, we'll start somewhere that feels despairing, but we're going to come up for air. If you would pull our first scripture, it begins to play with one of the questions that we ponder in our work together. So this is from the Gospel of Matthew in the 6th chapter. And starts here. This is Jesus talking to the people. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And I think, do we have that pulled up in another translation? I think I'd asked if we could put that together, but I'm not sure if you have it or not. There it is. King James Version. People give the King James Version a hard time. Sometimes it can be difficult, but sometimes it picks up nuances out of the old Greek that we miss sometimes in our overall better, admittedly, translations. But it reads this way: the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, different word than healthy, isn't it? But hold it. If thine eye be single, the whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? Now, let that stay there for a second. How do we get from single to evil? That's not a fair comparison, is it? That's not an either or, is it? Let me help with that. To say the eye is single is to say that the eye has a singular focus. It's looking at one thing. And he's saying if your eye stays on the one thing, that thing being God, or and as Jesus' crowd would have heard, the law and the prophets, but if your eye is on God singularly, then your body will be full of light. It's a metaphor. If your eye is, let's assume evil means divided. Is that okay? Let's assume your eye keeps trying to look at the light of God, but you keep looking over here at something else you want. If the eye is not single, then your body will be full of darkness. It seems to be the case with human nature that whatever I'm looking at is where my body goes. It could be a disaster if I do that actually in real life and try to walk that out, but if I know I should be looking at God, but I keep looking over here at something else I want, more and more my attention will go that way. And if it's not light, if it ain't good, it's darkness. And if that becomes all I see, how great is that darkness? His point is, how do I ever find my way out of the darkness once I've decided to call that my light? How do I ever find my way out of it? And we've done a very sad and dangerous thing in our sophistication of human societies. Not just now, always. That when we, or an individual, or collectively, or some group in the collective, finds there's something that to them is advantageous, that at the same time is not good, not quite moral. If they can find enough of a quorum to call the thing reasonable, necessary, good, or maybe just straight up say it's advantageous. It's bad for that group over there that's going to suffer from this, but it's advantageous for us. If you get enough of a quorum for that in your civil structure of any era, of any millennia, you begin to call the wrong right. You begin to call the darkness light. Slavery is a good example. Holocaust, good example. Bad examples, I'm sorry. Horrible examples, but you see what I mean. Horrible examples, but accurate examples. As far back and well beyond the execution of Christians in the first century for the sake of a good Roman moral order. There has always been somebody or somebodies with a dangerous enough craft of intellect or of tongue to sell the darkness as the light. And once enough folks buy that the darkness is the light, how great is that darkness? I want you to put a pin in that for me. And could we please go to the next passage? This was supposed to be first, but I'm glad that it came second because it makes a better order of the thoughts dancing through my head. The question I wanted to lead with was this: are we born sinful? Now, some folks will tell you off the bat, yes. And this is where that node that builds so many theologies starts from. In the 51st Psalm, the 5th verse. This is David really lamenting out of his experience of himself after the death of Bathsheba's husband, who he has killed because he's gotten her pregnant. And he's now repenting after being confronted by the prophet. But he says this: indeed, speaking to God in his poetic praises and laments, indeed, I was born guilty. Now, a lot of the other old translations say, born sinful. A sinner when my mother conceived me. Well, let's just go home then. A lot of people build their theology out of this one piece and then try to build a whole network out of that. And that's a hard network to think yourself through in the eyes of God. Can we go to the second one? We're going to survey a couple of these and get back on track, but I wanted to survey these. These are less often thought of or referenced by people, but from the 58th Psalm in the 3rd verse, it says, the wicked go astray from the womb. They err from their birth, speaking lies. So before they ever got here, already wicked waiting to... You ever see that 3-week-old that lies to its mom about how much milk it's had and then tricks her into giving her a... I've not seen that, but that's a rough assessment of human nature. But that's what it says. Now, counterbalance. This is why you can't use Psalms too much as you build your own theology and thoughts about faith and about God, because I want to counterbalance with some other statements about human nature in the Psalms. Psalm 22, verse 10. Again, the psalmist says this: "On you I was cast," talking of God, "I was cast on you from my birth, and since my mother bore me, you have been my God." Very different depiction of human nature at the beginning. And then one more, please. Psalm 71 and 6. We are working his finger so hard up there. Thank you for putting up with me. But speaking again about human nature, the psalmist says, in speaking to God, "Upon you I have leaned from my birth. It was you who took me from my mother's womb. My praise is continually of you." So, contrasting depictions of who we are from the beginning of ourselves. And it is a duality that we see supported other places in Scripture. You'll recall Paul, and maybe you won't want to visit this sometime in the future, but some of our scholars will recall Paul lamenting the fact that the things I would do, I don't do. The things I know I shouldn't do, I do anyway. Who can deliver me from this? And he pleads to Christ for that. But so none of these four, or these sets of two, is inaccurate. I want to say this about human nature, and my wife and our other counselors can smack my hand if I wade too far into a field that isn't mine to talk about as far as the social sciences, but my thinking about it, how we start, and how some of us get where we end up. We celebrate a great deal when a child is born. Have you ever thought about being the child that got born? Like, maybe 10 hours ago. That was good. It's warm, it's cozy. I don't have to think about eating. Everything is great. And then something begins to squish my body out into this world I didn't ask to go into. It's cold out here. I'm kind of all dangly now. And you cut off my food supply pretty quickly, and then you smack me on the butt. And in the meantime, I'm now experiencing this thing called hunger that I can't even define yet. I can't define what cold means, but I'm feeling it. And best thing I've got to work with is a cry. To demand what I want and what I need. No one faults a baby for that. Technically, it's very much the same thing as what we'll eventually call sinful, where all I'm preoccupied with is what I want and what I need. But it's a baby. It's a different vibe when you're like that at 50. That's a problem. But it's a baby. Born in a way you would describe as sinful if the person was 20 or 30 or 40. But okay, so I'm here. I've got these needs, I've got this cry, and I'm just trying to figure it out. And I find out that when I cry, someone feeds me, and if that didn't satisfy the cry inside me and I cry again, someone holds me and keeps me close. And if I cry again because that's still not satisfied, someone changes this thing I'm wearing and I'm dry again, and I like that. Get a little older, I get some feet under me, I find these things that are grabby, and I've learned some new things I can take if I want them. And I start learning words like no and mine. And once in a while I might get a thing that stings on my hand if I grab the wrong thing. I don't get any of this, I'm grabbing stuff. I'm going to do whatever I'm able to do to get what I want. Still doesn't sound horrible, does it, when you're 9 months old or a year old? Again, by the time you're 30, 40, 50, 15, 16, it becomes a problem. But that's what it is. And so start from there. You grow up in this world, as we have made it, in which, in so many ways, I'm hearing things that should be darkness being called light. And I'm learning week after week, year after year, how to manipulate this world. Now again, as a kid, that's not a negative. Manipulate just means I have tools and I use them. That's all a kid's trying to do. I've got to make sure this man or this woman that picks me up and makes me feel safe keeps coming, likes me. I've got to make sure, depending on the situation, I may not feel safe around that person at all. And I'm just trying to avoid them altogether. All these things, if I keep talking, it'll feel like such a tangle, but it is a tangle. And we get so tangled up, growing up in this world with all of these real needs and wants, then these other needs and wants that get laid over top of them, and I'm in this world and all of its sophistication that keeps making me want and supposedly need new things. And I keep getting the sense as I'm in this world that nothing is more important than what I need or what I want. And so you become a problem if you're in the way. That's a real quick part of the twisty side of human history. But the simple, basic needs grow and are informed and changed and twisted and sometimes buried and corrupted as we move through this world through any number of messages that gosh, I mean, I couldn't even name them all in a sermon. But I think you understand where I'm going. It's not that we are born like wicked, evil, but we are born with the same qualities naturally, without blame, that could very much make for a sinful person later in life if I'm not confronted with ways of navigating this life and viewing myself and others in ways that are, in fact, actually good. And there are those that, as our first passage alluded to, can we pull that back up? Is that next in the slide deck? I don't want to pull you out of order. What's our next slide in the deck? Poor guy probably went to sleep. Okay. Hold it right there. We'll come to that one. And so I'm living in this world in which I may not be able to discern what's dark and what's light because I'm getting every kind of message from everywhere. Among some of the things that I want to lay as an example, and I'm getting ready to bring us home here, so says the preacher. In the things that we call light, that are darkness, the things that we call good or noble or acceptable, that really are not, but that we keep needing to in our society. One example I want to make is that we have, again, since the beginning of human civilization, always made in our civilization and in our civil order a home for violence. We say it has its place, necessary sometimes for justice, defense, etc. I don't want to get into all of that. That's not the point. The point is, whatever else you want to color it with, we make a place in our societies, in our civil arrangements, in our civilizations for violence. And all I'm saying is that violence is not a force, some would say a spirit. It is not a thing that you can quarantine. Violence always slips its leash. Violence always spills its blanks. Throughout all of human history, it has done that. Do with that what you will. But it's still something we continue to not quite call all the way out as what it is. We say it has its place, and we say there are certain places it can be used, but that intersects with another problem. There's this other thing that we allow and give permission for sometimes called anger. When anger happens in people who feel they don't have any power, they can know from their social memory that there's this tool you can use when you don't feel like you have power to suddenly feel real powerful. And violence spills its banks. Not blaming, not pointing fingers. I'm naming the fact that the world as we have created it is a world in which a person can get twisted, contorted, buried in the experience of life to such a degree that this thing we keep around can be something they decide they're going to use. It is a much uglier logic than what we find in the created world. And how great is that darkness? John 3:17 through 21. Jesus talking to Nicodemus. We like 16. We sometimes get so excited about 16, we miss the rest of what Jesus says. He says, "Indeed, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him." Hold me there for just a second. That we might be saved through him, that we could again see from God and God's own Son what the light is supposed to be, to confront the darkness we keep calling light and to say, that's not it. This is the light. This way of life, this is what is good. This is the light. So Jesus came to show us and to say to us, you can hop the line. you who are lost and wandering in darkness, and come into the light. I'm making that way possible. Literally, metaphorically, spiritually, Jesus does that by the cross and his resurrection. He shows us what the light is and offers us a way to be in the light. Let's go ahead to the next one. Those who believe in him are not condemned, but those who do not believe are condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of the Son of God. Not just his name, but all that he tells us. And on to the last one. And this is the judgment. Not just that they didn't believe in his name, but that the light has come into the world and people love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. So it's not just I don't believe in his name. It's I don't like what he's confronting me with. I'm not willing to let myself give up what I found over here in the darkness for the sake of what this man's confronting me with and offering me. They loved darkness rather than the light because their deeds were evil. And then lastly, for all who do evil hate the light and do not come to the light, so that their deeds may not be exposed. But those who do what is true come to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that their deeds have been done in God. Now that's quite a spread that I don't think most of us live most of our life in. Over here all the way, with all my deeds being clearly done in God, or over here in the darkness, I think for most of the world it's kind of a twilight dance. I like what Jesus is talking about. I want to be over here, but there's this one thing I want to do. I'll be right back. And so we dance a lot in the twilight. Where I want to leave us today, Lord, at church is this. We talk so much about being saved from hell, and rightly so. This week has made me remember again, the world as we have made it is a world that can make that kind of person, and we need as much saved from the things that can make that kind of person as we do from an eternal hell. Jesus saves now, here. Jesus gives us now, here, some anchor, some better point of reference than all the potential supposed virtues and good things of this world that twist us, that bury us, that turn us all in the wrong direction. I need saved today from a world that can make that kind of person. And you, my friends, are the light of the world. Good luck. No, but honestly, what does it mean to be the light of the world in a time such as this? I always fuss when folks say time such as this, but it is a time such as this. I so want to give you something to leave out of here with that lets you have an answer of some sort. I don't think I can give you much more than this. There will be times and spaces in the living of your life when there will be before us what Jesus asks of us, what Jesus teaches us, what we know Jesus would have us be and do, and there will be an option. At the very least, if in the moment you lose your nerve and you take the option, at least don't say it's good. At least don't call that the light. Bring that back into the light. Maybe not that the deed you did was something you did by God's power, but the bringing of it back into the light with the courage to do so is in of itself a work of God in you. You are the light of the world. Where you fail to be the light of the world, take a breath, pick up your chin, call it what it was. Stand back in the light of the God that loves you and say what we've said before in this place: create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me, with the courage to say when darkness is darkness. I confess, as a pastor who loves and cares for you, my heart is heavy to even put all that on you. But I'm not putting it on us. It's what Jesus asks of us. And if I would keep back from you what Jesus asked for us, I couldn't call that light either, could I? So here we are, friends. the light of the world, you and I, in a world in which we can shine very brightly because of the darkness that's out there and the folks who need something else to see. And that something else would be you and me and our brothers and sisters in the church around the world, if we will resolve to truly let ourselves shine in the way Jesus encourages and confronts us to do. And so, let us be Christ. Amen.